The stars faded as the ship slipped into the hazy atmosphere of Geril 5, a small, unnamed moon orbiting a forgotten gas giant. Damon felt the familiar thrill of descent, his heart pounding as he gripped the controls, every fiber of his training ready for the uncertain terrain. This place was rumored to be desolate, a mere blip in a vast galaxy filled with marvels. But rumor had also whispered of strange readings, anomalies in magnetic fields, pockets of energy that didn't match any known source. Damon had volunteered, not expecting to find much, but something about the silence here was alluring, the kind that tugged at a man's curiosity. As the ship touched down with a gentle thud, Damon took a steadying breath, feeling the vibrations settle beneath him. The landscape outside appeared barren, with jagged rock formations stretching into an unbroken horizon under a thin, faintly violet sky. Perfectly silent. He activated his headset. Landing successful. Beginning preliminary scan. The response was garbled, faint, a blip of static across a vast distance. He shook his head, muttering to himself, "Comms are already on the fritz? That's not a good start." Stepping out into the open, he scanned the area. His boots crunched on the dusty, pale surface, the only sound for miles. He raised a scanner, but as soon as it powered on, a series of lights flickered across the device, giving no comprehensible readings. Damon frowned, tapping the screen. "Great," he muttered, glancing around, feeling an odd sense of being watched. It was irrational, of course. This place was supposedly lifeless. Still, the feeling wouldn't leave. And then, out of nowhere, a voice, sharp, low, and decidedly feminine. "Drop it, now." He froze, every nerve in his body suddenly alert. Slowly, he turned to face the voice. Behind him, mere steps away, stood a figure, a woman yet unmistakably alien. She had skin a shade of dark emerald, shimmering like polished stone, and her eyes gleamed with an intensity that could pierce through steel. Clad in dark, form-fitting armor that bore symbols he'd never seen before, she stood with a lethal poise, one hand extended toward him, gripping a sleek, unfamiliar weapon. "Drop the scanner," she repeated, her tone as cold as the atmosphere surrounding them. Damon let the device fall from his hand, his mind racing to catch up. "Who are you?" he demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. Her gaze narrowed. "The one asking questions here is me. Why are you on Geril 5? Who sent you?" I'm with the Intergalactic Survey Division," he replied, raising his hand slightly. "I was just here to—" She cut him off with a curt wave of her hand. "I don't care about your division or its empty claims." Her eyes seemed to bore into him, dissecting him. "There's no reason for you to be here. No human should be here." "Look," Damon said, taking a cautious step back. "I didn't know this moon was claimed. I'll pack up, leave right now. No harm, no foul." A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face, and she took a step closer. Leaving is no longer an option. With a swift motion, she aimed the weapon at him, and before he could even register the thought to run, a wave of energy surged from the device, sending a shock through his body that numbed his limbs. Damon collapsed, unable to move, his mind spinning. Darkness closed in as he heard her final words, the faint echo of her voice carrying an eerie weight. "You've come too far, human. Much too far." When he came to, Damon found himself in a cell, a small metallic chamber with faintly glowing walls, smooth to the touch, and a single, tightly sealed door. There was no sign of the alien woman, only the echoing silence, thick and unyielding. He sat up slowly, feeling a residual ache where the energy blast had struck him. Not one for giving up easily, Damon inspected the room, running his fingers along the edges of the walls. His mind was racing, dissecting his short encounter with the alien woman. Her movements, her expression, the sharp edge in her tone, it had all seemed personal. Why was she here? And why did she care that he had landed? The door slid open with a whisper, and she entered, her eyes locking onto his with the same unyielding intensity. "You're awake," she stated, stepping forward until she was inches from his face. "Good. I have questions, and you're going to answer them." Damon met her gaze, his pulse steady, but his thoughts boiling beneath the surface. "I told you, I'm just a researcher. I don't know what you think I—" "Enough." She held up a hand, her expression hardening. "Your kind always has hidden motives, always arrives with some agenda. You were exploring this moon for a reason, weren't you?" "Yes," he admitted, exasperated, "but only because of strange energy readings. I had no idea anyone lived here, let alone—" He trailed off, letting his eyes roam over her. Her gaze softened slightly, a flicker of something indecipherable passing over her features. She studied him for a long moment, as though searching for some hidden truth in his face. "So you're telling me," she murmured, "that your arrival here is— coincidence? Hard as it might be for you to believe, yes." Damon leaned forward slightly, trying to catch her gaze. "Look, maybe we can work something out. I don't even know your name. You already have the upper hand here. At least tell me why I'm being held." She straightened, her eyes cold as steel once more. "Names are irrelevant. What matters is what you're willing to reveal. You say you're here by chance. I know better than to believe that." Damon huffed, trying to mask his frustration. "If you're so sure I have some hidden motive, why not just throw me off this moon?" A silence settled between them, tense and filled with unspoken meaning. She took a step back, her gaze never wavering. "Because there's something about you, human," she replied finally, her voice low and almost hesitant. "Something I need to understand." Hours passed, each one stretched by an agonizing silence. Damon's mind spun with questions, but each time she returned, he could sense a different energy between them. She was probing, prying, but also observing, almost as if he were an experiment she couldn't quite figure out. After another terse exchange, Damon finally demanded, "Why are you so interested in me? If I'm just another human, as you keep suggesting, then what makes me worth all this trouble?" She didn't answer, her jaw tight, her expression guarded. "If I'm such an annoyance," he pushed, "why not eliminate the problem? Or is it that there's something you're not willing to admit?" Her eyes flashed, and for a moment, he thought she would strike him, but instead, she merely sighed, her shoulders tensing. "There's more to you than even you realize, Damon," she said at last, her voice barely above a whisper, filled with a note of reluctant respect. "And I intend to find out what." He felt a shiver run down his spine, her words lodging in his mind like an unsolved puzzle. Damon didn't know what truth lay beneath her guarded exterior, but one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. And whatever this strange, fierce woman sought in him, it wasn't something she would abandon easily. Damon paced the confines of the cell, each step a reminder of how utterly trapped he was. But it wasn't only the physical walls enclosing him. The alien woman's words lingered in his mind, gnawing at him with their ambiguity. "There's more to you than even you realize." What could she possibly mean? He was no one special, just an ordinary planetary researcher. And yet, each time she looked at him, her gaze had an edge, something cold and calculating. But underneath that, something else he couldn't quite name. The door hissed open, and there she was again, her form imposing against the metallic backdrop. Her expression was, as always, unreadable. She stepped forward, hands clasped behind her back, and leveled her gaze at him. "We need to talk," she said, her tone flat, almost weary. He gave a sardonic smile. "Finally ready to answer some questions?" Her eyes narrowed, but she held her composure. "I'm the one asking questions here. Any answers I give are a luxury, one you have yet to earn." "Earn?" He took a step closer, holding her gaze with a challenging look. "You took me captive. I don't owe you anything." She studied him in silence, her expression almost contemplative. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a hint of something softer in her eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Tell me about your past. she said abruptly, ignoring his defiance. Your family, your upbringing, everything. He frowned, taken aback. Why does that matter to you? Just answer the question. Her voice had a strange undercurrent, something that hinted at a personal stake. Every detail. He hesitated, but realized he had little choice if he wanted to get any closer to the truth. There's not much to tell, he began reluctantly. I was raised on Terra 7, a colony world. Nothing special, just another backwater outpost. My parents were teachers, ordinary people. I wasn't the easiest kid to raise. He chuckled, almost to himself. Always had a knack for getting into trouble, sneaking into places I wasn't supposed to. Her gaze sharpened, as though she were latching onto every word, every detail. Go on. I went into planetary research to see more of the galaxy, maybe find something more meaningful, something bigger than myself. He shrugged. That's all there is. Nothing unusual, no secrets. She regarded him with a silent intensity. Nothing unusual, yet you find yourself here on Geril 5 of all places. Yeah, what's so important about this place anyway? He took a daring step forward. If I'm such a nobody, then why hold me here? Why all these questions about my past? She hesitated, visibly torn, before finally speaking. Because, Damon, Geril 5 isn't just another moon. This place is a threshold, a bridge between worlds, guarded for centuries by my people. A bridge? He repeated, baffled. What, like some interstellar highway? More than that. Her voice softened, her gaze drifting past him as if recalling a memory. Long ago it was a meeting place, a council ground, where ancient alliances were forged and where beings from across the galaxy gathered. Damon shook his head. And what does that have to do with me? Her gaze snapped back to him, as piercing as ever. Everything. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You carry a mark, Damon, a legacy imprinted in your blood whether you know it or not. That's why you were drawn here. A legacy? He could hardly keep the disbelief from his voice. I'm just a researcher. Whatever this mark is, you've got the wrong guy. She smirked, a glint of humor flickering in her eyes. Oh, I assure you, I have the right one. He swallowed, feeling the gravity of her words settle heavily in his chest. Then what does this mean for me? It means, she replied, her tone darkening, that your presence here could trigger something far beyond what you can comprehend. Then why keep me in this cell? He challenged. If I'm so important, if I have some destiny tied to this place, why not just let me go? Because you're untrained, unprepared. Her gaze hardened. Releasing you would be akin to unleashing a storm without knowing its direction. And until I know exactly what's inside you and what purpose you serve, I cannot risk it. A silence fell between them, charged and uneasy. He studied her, noting the tension in her posture, the almost imperceptible shift in her breathing. She was hiding something, a piece of the truth that felt dangerously close. Let me make this clear, he said, his voice low. I didn't ask for any of this. If there's something you need to know, you might as well tell me outright. I don't respond well to threats and confinement. Her eyes softened slightly, though she still held herself with a rigid composure. Damon, this is not a matter of what you want. It's a matter of what you are. He couldn't help the frustrated laugh that escaped him. What I am, and what exactly am I? For the first time she hesitated, her gaze slipping away, as though weighed down by the words she was about to say. You are a descendant of the Haraktil. The Haraktil? He shook his head in confusion. Never heard of them. Of course you haven't. The Haraktil were an ancient people, long extinguished, or so my people believed. They were rare, wise diplomats, envoys who traveled between galaxies, forging peace between warring worlds. But they were extinguished, hunted until they were nothing but memory. Until now. Wait. He held up a hand, trying to process her words. You think I'm one of them? She sighed, her expression heavy with reluctant certainty. Not exactly. But you bear their signature, a genetic trait that marks you as a potential. The Heractyl would awaken under certain circumstances, usually triggered by proximity to their ancestral grounds. She gestured vaguely around them. This place, this moon, it holds remnants of that legacy. He took a step back, trying to wrap his mind around it. You're saying I'm some dormant diplomat, some peacekeeper? That's insane. Believe what you will. Her voice was steady, unyielding. But the truth remains. Your presence here is not a coincidence. A shiver ran through him. And what exactly do you plan to do with me? She moved closer, until she was standing right in front of him, her gaze bearing down on him like a storm. I intend to awaken whatever lies dormant within you, to see if the legacy holds. And if it does... She trailed off, leaving the implication heavy in the air. His jaw tightened. And if it doesn't? Her eyes hardened, a shadow passing over her face. Then this will all have been for nothing. He felt a surge of frustration, a mix of anger and helplessness rising within him. You don't get to decide my fate, he said, his voice rough. Whatever you think I am, I'm still my own person. She smirked, though there was no warmth in her gaze. Are you? Perhaps, but that's not for you to decide. He clenched his fists, trying to keep his temper in check. You're really going to force this on me? You think that's fair? Fairness has nothing to do with it, she replied coolly. This is about survival. My people need allies, true allies who can keep the peace as the Heractyl once did, and if you are the answer to that need, then I will do whatever it takes. Their gazes locked, each one filled with a fierce defiance. He could see the weight of responsibility in her eyes, the burden she carried for her people. But he could also feel his own resolve hardening, a defiance that refused to be extinguished. Fine, he said, his voice cold. You want to awaken something in me? Go ahead. But know this, I won't be your puppet. For a moment, a flicker of something passed through her eyes, something almost like respect, but it vanished just as quickly, replaced by her usual guarded demeanor. Very well, she replied, a hint of challenge in her tone. Then let's see if you truly have the spirit of the Heractyl within you. And with that, she turned and left, the door hissing shut behind her, leaving him alone with the weight of her words. As the silence settled around him, Damon felt a strange, pulsing sensation deep within his chest, a rhythm that wasn't his own. His heart pounded, yet he felt a sense of anticipation, as though something within him was indeed awakening, stirring in response to the ancient energies of this moon. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. He would face whatever was coming on his own terms, no matter what she believed. The steady pulse inside Damon had grown into a hum, reverberating through his veins, as if the very ground beneath him were calling out, seeking some buried part of his essence. Days had passed in his cell, his mind whirling as he pieced together the cryptic hints the alien woman, whom he now knew as Lyra, had revealed to him. Late one evening, as he lay awake, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside his cell, heavy and purposeful. He sat up, pulse racing, half expecting another routine interrogation from Lyra. But when the door slid open, the figure standing before him wasn't Lyra at all. This alien was larger, broader, his skin a pale mottled blue, his eyes cold and unblinking. "Come with me," the alien said, his voice devoid of any warmth. Damon hesitated, eyeing the stranger warily. "Where are you taking me?" "To see the commander," the alien replied, his voice sharp, leaving no room for negotiation. The corridor outside his cell was dimly lit, casting eerie shadows against the metallic walls. The alien led him through a maze of identical passages until they arrived at a heavy door that opened with a low mechanical groan. Inside was a small chamber, barely furnished, and Lyra stood there, waiting for him. The tension in the room was almost tangible. Lyra's expression was guarded, but there was an intensity in her gaze that Damon couldn't ignore. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a simple metal chair in the center of the room. He sat slowly, his eyes never leaving her. "I assume you brought me here for something important." Lyra crossed her arms, studying him with that same calculating look. "It's time to bring clarity to your purpose here. I believe you're ready to understand the truth." Damon's frustration boiled over. "I've been ready since you first dragged me here. Enough with the cryptic hints. Tell me what you know." For the first time, Lyra looked almost vulnerable. She glanced at the guard, nodded, and then dismissed him. When they were alone, she spoke softly, her voice laced with something almost like regret. "Damon, I didn't bring you here simply because of your ancestry," she began, her gaze unwavering. "Yes, you may have the remnants of the Heractil in your blood, but that's only a small part of why I've kept you here." He frowned, unsure of where she was leading. "Then what else is there?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. The Heractil carried a gift, a unique ability that allowed them to influence minds, connect with others in ways no other species could. She paused as though searching for the right words. But over time, that gift faded. Or so we thought. Damon shook his head, confused. "You're saying I have this ability?" "Yes," she replied, her eyes gleaming with intensity. "It's weak, but it's there. I've sensed it since you arrived. That's why I've been keeping you close, waiting to see if it would awaken fully." He stared at her, the weight of her words settling heavily upon him. "And why is this so important to you?" Lyra's gaze softened. "Because the peace that has kept our galaxy united is breaking. Old alliances are crumbling, and war is on the horizon. My people, we need someone like you, someone who can bridge the divide between our worlds." "So you brought me here to, train me? Turn me into some kind of galactic peacemaker?" His voice dripped with skepticism. "Yes," she admitted quietly. "But there's more. Much more." She moved closer, her eyes holding a depth of sorrow that Damon hadn't seen before. "I didn't just choose you for your heritage. There's something personal. My people destroyed the Heractil centuries ago, but it was my family, my bloodline, that led the final strike. And as it turns out, one of the last Heractil who escaped was your ancestor." Damon's heart pounded in his chest. "So this is some kind of cosmic revenge for you?" "No," she replied, her voice filled with an unexpected warmth. "Not revenge. Redemption." She paused, visibly struggling. "I've spent my life trying to undo the damage my family caused. If helping you means that I can atone for that, then so be it." Her words left him stunned, a swirl of emotions fighting for dominance within him, anger, confusion, and something dangerously close to empathy. "And what if I refuse?" he asked, testing her resolve. Lyra's expression didn't change. "Then I let you go. But you must understand, Damon, your choices have consequences that extend far beyond this room, this moon, even this galaxy." The weight of her words settled on him, an overwhelming sense of responsibility that he hadn't asked for, but that he couldn't deny. "What do I need to do?" he asked finally, resignation thick in his voice. For the first time, Lyra smiled, a soft, almost tender expression that transformed her features. "You need to awaken your gift fully, and I can help you." They spent hours in that room, their voices low, a strange intimacy forming between them as Lyra guided him through exercises, urging him to reach deep within himself, to find that elusive part of his being that carried the legacy of the Heractil. As the hours passed, Damon felt something stir inside him, a faint spark that grew into a flame, fueled by her presence, her guidance. He could feel her thoughts brushing against his, a faint whisper that filled his mind with images of distant stars, ancient worlds, and Lyra herself, standing alone on a barren planet, her eyes filled with longing. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because I need you to understand," she replied, her voice trembling. "This isn't just about duty for me. It's about connection, redemption, and maybe—" Her voice trailed off, and he saw a vulnerability in her eyes that took him by surprise. "Maybe what?" he pressed, his own heart racing. "Maybe hope," she admitted quietly. Their gazes locked, and for a moment all the barriers between them fell away, leaving only the raw, unfiltered connection between two souls caught in the web of fate. Just as he felt himself falling deeper into her thoughts, the door burst open, shattering the fragile moment. The guard from before stormed in, his expression furious. "Commander," he barked, "there's been an attack. One of the outer colonies has fallen. We're needed immediately." Lyra's face went cold, her expression hardening as she turned back to Damon. "I have to go," she said, her voice laced with regret. "But this isn't over, Damon. Remember what I told you." And then she was gone, swept away by duty, leaving him alone once more with the faint echo of her words lingering in his mind. Hours later, Damon sat in silence, his mind racing. The connection he'd felt with Lyra had left an indelible mark on him, a faint trace of her presence that pulsed within his mind like a beacon. He could feel her thoughts still, faint but unmistakable, a thread that bound them across the vastness of space. And then, as if in answer to some unspoken question, he felt a surge of power within him, an awakening that filled him with a strength he'd never known. He could see it now, the legacy of the Heractil, the power to bridge worlds, to bring peace to a galaxy on the brink of chaos. But as he rose to his feet, ready to face whatever lay ahead, he realized that he wasn't alone. The memory of Lyra's touch lingered, a promise and a challenge that he couldn't ignore. The door to his cell opened, and he stepped forward, his mind clear, his purpose set. He would find her. He would complete the mission they'd started, and together they would face the destiny that awaited them both. As he walked through the corridor, the hum within him grew louder, a song of ancient power and forgotten dreams. And in that moment, he knew that he had become more than just a captive, more than a legacy. He had become a force for change, a bridge between worlds, bound to Lyra by fate and by choice. And as he strode into the unknown, Damon felt a thrill of excitement, knowing that this was only the beginning. The stars stretched out across the vast darkness of space, serene and undisturbed. Yet for those on the ISS Aegis, humanity's largest and most advanced warship, there was no peace to be found. A low hum vibrated through the steel walls of the observation deck, growing louder as Captain Elias Saren's boots struck the metal floor with a deliberate rhythm. He gazed out the reinforced window, seeing nothing but the scattered pinpoints of stars. And yet, he felt them. Out there. Closer with each passing moment. "They're just sitting there?" Saren's voice was rough, his words directed at Lieutenant Karina Holt, who was stationed at the tactical console. She didn't look up, her fingers dancing over the touchscreen with an urgency born of both fear and excitement. "Yes, Captain," she replied, her voice a barely controlled whisper. "Scans show an entire fleet, holding position at the edge of the system. They're bigger than anything we've ever seen." Saren's jaw clenched, but he kept his voice steady. "How many ships?" "About 30, at least. They're massive, sir. Their flagship alone is nearly the size of a small moon. And their weapons—" Her voice trailed off, as if any description would fail to capture the threat looming in the dark. He looked at her, studying her expression. She was young, barely a year out of the academy, but she was one of the best in tactical. If anyone knew the intricacies of weaponry, it was her. "Lieutenant Holt, I need you focused. Whatever we're up against, they're not invincible." She nodded, eyes fierce despite the terror that danced in their depths. "Yes, sir. I'll keep scanning for weaknesses." At that moment, A low, pulsing alarm sounded across the deck. The ship's AI, known as Athena, spoke up, her voice smooth and calm. Incoming transmission from the lead alien vessel. Designation, Dominion. Saren's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The first direct contact with an alien species capable of interstellar war. A silence fell over the bridge, thick and tense, as the crew held their breath. "Patch it through," he said, his voice a low command. The main view screen flickered, then crackled to life. What appeared on the screen was not what any of them expected. The alien's face was a striking blend of beauty and intimidation, skin a deep shade of gray-blue, eyes that glowed faintly gold. The lines of its face were sharp, elegant, yet utterly foreign. Its uniform was smooth, almost liquid in its appearance, as if it had been poured onto its body. "Human vessel," the alien spoke, voice carrying an eerie resonance. "I am Admiral Thyxar of the Var Dominion. Your kind has been noticed." A ripple of fear swept through the crew, but Saren held his ground. He took a step closer to the screen, his face hardening. "Admiral Thyxar, I am Captain Elias Saren of the United Earth Command. This is Earth space, and you are approaching uninvited." Thyxar raised an eyebrow, a gesture that seemed almost amused. "Is that what you call it, Earth space? Your species clings to a single rock, barely venturing beyond its orbit, and you call this your space? How quaint." Holt clenched her fists, muttering under her breath. "Arrogant bastard." Saren shot her a warning glance before returning his attention to Thyxar. "Admiral, humanity may be young, but we're prepared to defend our home. You're not the first threat we've faced, and you won't be the last." Thyxar's lips curved into a thin smile. "I find your bravery admirable, Captain. Foolish, but admirable. We could annihilate your entire world within moments. We have done so to countless others. Do you think Earth is any different?" Saren's gaze did not falter. He could feel the eyes of his crew on him, their fear palpable, their loyalty unwavering. "We don't back down, Admiral," he replied, each word a weight upon the air. "If you want Earth, you'll have to earn it." A long, chilling silence followed. Thyxar's golden eyes narrowed, examining Saren as though he were a specimen under a microscope. "Very well, Captain," he said at last. "Consider this a warning. We will be patient, as we always are, but know that patience has limits." The screen went dark, leaving only the echo of Thyxar's words hanging in the air. Saren turned to Holt, who was already analyzing the transmission data. "What did you get from that?" "Enough to know they're not bluffing," she replied, her fingers moving rapidly over the console. "Their power levels. Captain, their flagship alone carries enough firepower to level continents." Saren pressed his lips together, considering their options. "Get me a full report on every weapon system we have, every defense mechanism. I want every possible strategy prepared. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." Lieutenant Commander Isaac Reese stepped up beside him, his grizzled face set in a grim expression. "Do you think they'll really attack? They'll test us first. A species like that, they don't just destroy. They watch, analyze, see what we're made of." Saren clenched his fists. "Well, they're about to find out." Reese grunted, his eyes flicking to the silent stars beyond the observation deck. "They won't know what hit them." An hour later, the Aegis was on high alert. The crew worked with single-minded focus, every system running checks, every weapon tested and armed. Saren paced the bridge, his gaze flickering between his officers, each of them tense, braced for the unknown. Finally, Athena's calm voice broke the silence. "Captain, I have intercepted a low-frequency transmission from one of the alien vessels. It appears to be a data packet." "Translate it, Athena. Let's see what they're sending." Saren's voice was sharp, but there was a thread of curiosity in it. After a moment, Athena's voice came again, with a strange, almost reverent tone. "The message contains records, images. They're cataloging us." "Cataloging?" Reese echoed, frowning. "Yes, Athena replied. They have footage of Earth's major cities, scans of our military installations. They're studying us as one would study a newly discovered species. A cold chill ran down Saren's spine. They're sizing us up, he murmured, almost to himself, seeing if we're worth the effort to crush. Holt's voice cut through the tension, trembling but determined. Then let's make sure we are. Reese nodded, a fierce glint in his eyes. Let them see what happens when you underestimate humanity. For a brief moment, there was a shared look between them all, a unity forged in the fires of impending battle. Whatever came next, they would face it together, standing as one against the dark. Saren took a deep breath, steeling himself. Ready all weapons. Activate the defensive grid and keep scanning their movements, he ordered. If they want a demonstration, let's give them one they'll never forget. As the Aegis powered up, its massive armored hull gleaming in the starlight, it sent a clear, defiant message across the void. Humanity was here, and Earth would not go quietly into the night. The Aegis held its position, a lone sentinel against the dark expanse, staring down the silent VAR fleet. The alien ships hovered just beyond the asteroid belt, their glinting hulls stretching into the void like a line of waiting predators. Tensions were high, and the crew's anxiety buzzed through the air, unspoken but deeply felt. Lieutenant Karina Holt's voice broke the silence, steady yet edged with unease. Captain, scans indicate minimal movement. They're just holding position. Captain Saren nodded, eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. They're studying us, watching how we react. Lieutenant Commander Reese folded his arms, his expression grim. Think they're testing our patience? Perhaps, Saren replied. Or maybe they're hoping we'll make the first move and reveal our tactics. Athena's voice interrupted, smooth and even as ever. Captain, long-range scans are detecting subtle energy fluctuations within the VAR flagship. Saren straightened, his gaze sharpening. Fluctuations? What kind? High-energy plasma signatures. It appears they're charging weapons, though at a low intensity. Reese muttered, A warning shot, maybe? Saren shook his head. They're baiting us, trying to see how we'll react under threat. They're testing whether we'll fire first. The bridge fell silent as the implications settled in. The VAR, as ruthless as they seemed, weren't looking for a fight they didn't understand. They were analyzing every move, every hesitation. Captain, Athena continued, shall I prepare countermeasures in the event of an attack? Saren took a long, measured breath. Do it, but keep our weapons on standby. We'll respond if necessary, no sooner, no later. The tension thickened and Reese shot him a skeptical glance. So, we just wait? Patience, Reese, Saren replied. They're not used to resistance. We want them to see that we're not intimidated, that we're ready to fight if we have to. He was met with nods of understanding. The crew seemed to draw strength from his calm, settling into their stations with renewed resolve. A sudden chime signaled an incoming transmission. Athena spoke up, her voice softer than usual. Captain, we're receiving a priority hail from the VAR flagship. Patch it through, Saren commanded, his voice steady. The view screen flickered, and once more Admiral Thixar appeared. His face was as inscrutable as before, but a subtle tension lined his features. Captain Saren, Thixar began, his voice as cold as the void between them. You've made your point clear. Earth is prepared to defend itself. But tell me, do you truly believe your kind can resist the VAR dominion? Saren met the alien's piercing gaze without flinching. We don't have a choice, Admiral. Surrender isn't in our nature. Thixar's lips twisted into a thin smile, more contemptuous than amused. Your species is clever, I'll grant you that. But cleverness only goes so far. Look at the history of the galaxy. Those who oppose the Dominion vanish. Holt leaned forward, unable to keep silent. And you expect us to just give up? Hand our world over without a fight? Thixar's gaze shifted to her, and for a moment, a glimmer of curiosity crossed his face. In every world we conquer, there are those like you, defiant, spirited. They refuse to yield until they understand the cost. Saren's voice was calm but firm. Earth is different, Admiral. We're not just another world in your path. We'll defend our home, and we'll do it with everything we have. Thyxar regarded him in silence for a moment, his golden eyes narrowing. Perhaps you believe that, but belief alone will not shield you from what's coming. He paused, letting his words sink in. I suggest you reconsider. A swift surrender would spare your kind much suffering. Saren's jaw tightened, his expression hardening. We'd rather suffer than live under your rule. If you want Earth, you'll have to earn it, and that won't be easy. The silence that followed was palpable, heavy with the weight of unspoken threats. Thyxar inclined his head slightly. Very well. If that is your choice, then so be it. I will allow you some time to prepare, but remember, Captain, resistance is futile. The view screen cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge bathed in the dim glow of the console lights. Rhys exhaled slowly, tension still etched on his face. Charming fellow, isn't he? He muttered. Saren looked at him, a grim smile tugging at his lips. He's used to people folding the moment they see his fleet. But we're not like the others. We have something worth fighting for. Just then, Athena's voice broke the silence once more. Captain, the VAR ships are beginning to move. They're establishing a blockade around Earth. A blockade? Holt's face paled. They're cutting us off. No supplies, no reinforcements. Rhys shook his head. It's a siege. They'll try to starve us out, weaken our resolve before they make their move. Saren's eyes narrowed. We need to hold the line. Send word to every military base on Earth, every ship in the system. No one backs down. We hold fast no matter what they throw at us. Athena's voice remained calm as ever. Captain, shall I issue a readiness alert to all crew members and allied vessels? Saren nodded. Do it, Athena. And update the command staff. We're officially on wartime footing. As Athena's alert echoed through the ship, the bridge crew exchanged solemn glances. They knew the odds were stacked against them, but the determination in Saren's eyes fueled their own resolve. Hours passed, and the Aegis was a hive of activity. Crew members bustled through the corridors, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Saren and Rhys stood together on the observation deck, watching as the VAR ships settled into their blockade, their dark silhouettes casting an ominous shadow over the Earth below. Rhys broke the silence, his voice low. So, what's the plan, Elias? Saren sighed, his gaze fixed on the alien fleet. We prepare. We let them see that we're ready for whatever they bring. And when the time comes, we fight. Rhys nodded slowly. It's strange, isn't it? All our lives we've trained for this, prepared for a threat from the stars. But now that it's here, he trailed off, a troubled look in his eyes. Saren placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We're not alone, Rhys. We've got the best crew in the fleet, and Earth standing behind us. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Rhys managed a faint smile. Together, then. Just then, Athena's voice chimed in, breaking the moment. Captain, we're detecting a small fluctuation in the VAR fleet's power levels. It appears they're deploying probes, likely gathering data on our defenses. Saren's eyes narrowed. They're still testing us, trying to find a weak spot. Rhys clenched his fists. Let them look. They won't find any. Holt's voice came through the intercom, laced with tension. Captain, permission to target and destroy one of the probes? Saren considered it, then shook his head. Negative, Lieutenant. Let them have their data. The more they underestimate us, the better. A pause, then a reluctant acknowledgement. Understood, sir. The bridge settled into a tense silence once more, everyone watching the slow, deliberate movements of the alien fleet. Minutes turned into hours, the VAR's silent siege unyielding, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the crew. Eventually, Holt broke the silence. Sir, if I may, what do you think they're planning? Saren's gaze remained fixed on the fleet beyond the window. They're testing us, pushing, prodding, trying to see where we'll crack. They've never met a species that's fought back before. They don't know what we're capable of." Reese smirked, the faintest hint of humor in his eyes. "Well, they're in for a surprise then." Saren allowed himself a small smile. "Yes, they are." He looked around at his crew, seeing the determination etched into each face. "We're not just defending Earth. We're defending what it means to be human, and that's something they'll never understand." In that moment, Saren felt the weight of the responsibility he bore, the lives depending on him, the fate of humanity resting on his shoulders. But as he looked at his crew, he knew he was not alone. "Prepare for anything," he said, his voice a steady anchor. "Whatever they throw at us, we'll be ready." The Aegis stood firm against the darkness, its engines thrumming with quiet power, its crew united in defiance. The Aegis drifted through the silent void, holding its position against the fleet's blockade. Tension weighed down the bridge. Every officer, from the newest ensign to the seasoned Captain Saren, felt the gravity of the moment. The Var's ships, massive and foreboding, waited in eerie silence. They were too quiet, their formations too precise, as if the whole armada held its breath, studying, anticipating. Holt's voice broke through the tension. "Captain, I've been analyzing the probe data. There's something off." Saren turned to her, brows knitted. "Off?" Holt nodded, her fingers flying over her console as she pulled up data on the main display. "The probes didn't transmit the data they collected. I thought they were mapping our defenses, but they were transmitting elsewhere. A different part of their fleet, not the main formation." Saren and Reese exchanged a look of mutual understanding and alarm. Reese leaned over the console, eyes narrowed. "So they've got another ship out there? A flagship maybe? Something hidden?" Holt nodded, tension threading her voice. "Exactly. A secondary unit, close enough to relay orders but far enough that we wouldn't notice it. I think they're analyzing us from a distance." Saren's eyes shifted toward the darkness beyond the fleet's visible line. "They're watching from the shadows, preparing a response based on what we reveal." The bridge settled into a tense silence as this realization sank in. Saren took a steadying breath and then issued his command. "Athena, are there any cloaked signals near our position?" A moment's pause, then Athena's voice cut through the quiet. "Captain, I'm detecting faint fluctuations on the far edge of the asteroid belt. I believe it's a command ship, cloaked and hidden." Saren felt a flicker of understanding. This was it, the unseen edge of the Var's strategy, their method for reading Earth's tactics without risking the full fleet. If we can isolate that ship— "Captain, permission to deploy a tactical drone?" Holt's eyes sparkled with determination. "We could send it past the asteroid belt, keeping it cloaked. If we get close enough, we can force their hand." Saren nodded, seeing the glimmer of a plan forming. "Do it, Holt, and prepare our countermeasures." Reese cracked a small, tense smile. "So, we're drawing the snake out of the grass?" Saren nodded. "They've been probing us, testing. Let's see if they're ready to handle a real response." Holt's fingers flew over her console, deploying the drone into the depths of space. Seconds ticked by as the cloaked drone sped toward the hidden ship, scanning for any sign of weakness, any flicker of the Var's intentions. Every eye on the bridge remained fixed on the screen, breaths held, waiting for the outcome. Athena's voice broke the silence. "Captain, the cloaked ship is reacting. They're scanning the drone. We're seeing energy spikes, high concentrations. It appears they're charging weapons." "Good," Saren murmured, watching with intense focus. "Keep the drone just on the edge of their range. Make them commit." "Captain," Holt whispered, "they're breaking formation. This could be our chance." Saren nodded. "Relay the coordinates to command and ready our countermeasures. We're going in." Reese glanced over, his gaze steady but cautious. "And if they turn their whole fleet on us?" Saren gave a slight smile. "Then we make sure they know what Earth's defenses can do." Just as he spoke, the hidden VAR command ship began to fall back, drifting toward its fleet, signaling a regroup. Holt's face tightened. "They're retreating, Captain." Saren's fingers drummed against the console. Not fast enough. In a swift maneuver, the Aegis powered forward, moving at a steep angle that placed them between the VAR command ship and the main armada. Saren held his breath as the view screen brought the enemy ship into stark detail. His finger hovered over the tactical panel, ready to fire if necessary. "Admiral Thexar," Saren called out over an open frequency, "we have eyes on your command ship. If you're prepared to talk terms, now's the time." The screen flickered, and Thexar's cold, calculating gaze appeared once again, but something had shifted. There was a flicker of discomfort behind his golden eyes, a hesitation they hadn't seen before. Thexar's voice was brittle. "Captain Saren, impressive. You've seen through our cloaking tactics." "Earth won't be taken easily," Saren replied evenly. "You assumed we'd fold without a fight, but I suggest you reconsider." For a moment, Thexar's expression held, unreadable and distant, but then his resolve faltered. He knew the risks of committing to a full assault now that his fleet's strategy had been exposed. "You're correct," Thexar finally conceded. His voice was softer, almost reluctant. "You have proven unexpected. Your technology, while crude, is effective. Perhaps we miscalculated your readiness for combat," Rhys muttered under his breath, a fancy way of admitting defeat. Saren gestured for quiet. "Admiral Thexar, Earth desires peace. We do not want war, but we will defend ourselves if forced." Thexar's expression remained grave. "We are the VAR. Peace is not our way. But you have earned our respect." His voice dipped, almost a whisper. "Your tactics surprised us." For a fleeting moment, Saren saw a vulnerability in the alien admiral, a crack in the cold, imperious exterior. There was a recognition, a grudging admiration. "Then leave," Saren said, his voice resolute. "Take your fleet and go back to your dominion." The silence that followed was suffocating. Thexar's gaze swept over Saren and his crew, as if memorizing their faces, the defiant humans who had dared to stand up to his armada. Then, almost reluctantly, Thexar nodded. "We will withdraw. Earth has earned this reprieve." The view screen went dark, and Saren exhaled, the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. Around him, the bridge crew erupted into quiet murmurs, a mix of disbelief and relief. Rhys clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Well done, Captain. Never thought we'd actually pull it off." Saren allowed himself a small smile. "Earth isn't just a planet, Rhys. It's home, and that's something no conqueror can understand." Holt's console lit up with data as the VAR fleet began to move, their ships turning in unison, breaking away from their blockade. As they departed, a final message appeared on the tactical display, a parting transmission from Thexar. "You have surprised us today, Captain Saren. Know that the Dominion rarely offers second chances." Saren read the message in silence, a sense of finality settling over him. He knew that while this victory had earned them time, the VAR's words carried a warning as much as respect. This encounter had been a test, one that Earth had barely passed. But as the stars cleared and the VAR fleet faded from view, Saren stood tall, his gaze steady. "Let them come back," he said quietly. "They'll find us ready." As the crew quietly celebrated, Saren allowed himself a rare moment of hope. They had seen the face of their enemy, and they had endured. They were no longer just defending Earth. They were defending a future, one that for now remained their own.